Okay, let's start this new chapter in which we are going to create out our first real world application. We've already learned a little bit about what Swift is and how it works. We've already learned about how you can create an application by defining the UI and connecting it to the view controller, which is going to control the flow of the application, the logic of the application. But until then, the application was not really useful for anyone. So for the first real-world application that we're going to create, we're going to define some functionality for an application to be able to tell us how many days are between today and a day that we are going to establish in an element of the user interface. Okay, so it's a very simple exercise, but it actually has some functionality, some value to it. Obviously, the first thing that we need to do is create it. So I have here Xcode, and I will click on create a new Xcode project. In here, I will keep using the single view application. I'm going to click next, and this one I'm going to call days until. Make sure that the language is still Swift. The device is set to iPhone. Right now we're just focusing on iPhone, and now we're going to click next. Select the place where you want to save your project and click on create. Let me just make this bigger. And you're already familiar, a little bit familiar with what all of this is. So we are just going to jump to the main.storyboard file in here, and we're going to start defining our user interface. So the first thing that we're going to need is a couple of labels, so we can tell the user what exactly is it that they're looking at, or what they are supposed to enter. Now, because we are going to design the interface right now only for the iPhone 6 or for whichever iPhone you want, I will change the designer to iPhone 4.7 inch, so we can notice exactly how it is going to look. And I'm going to change the value of this label. I can either go to the attributes inspector or double click it. And here I'm going to write date. And let me just make it bigger. And in here I will just make this label big, because this is going to be the label that is going to be showing the days between one date and the date and today. So I'm going to customize it a little bit, and I am setting a placeholder just to notice how it is going to look. And in here I guess that design is enough, because it has enough space to fit a lot of numbers. Okay, another thing that I'm going to need is of course the date picker. So this date picker is going to allow the user to select a date directly from the date picker, and so later on we can get that date, so the user doesn't have to write something. He just, the interface is great by using a UI date picker. Finally, we are going to need a button to trigger an event when the user wants to know the amount of days between today and the date they have entered. In here I'm just going to change the label to calculate. I need to make this a little bit bigger and center it like that. And I believe that the UI may be ready. Let me just run this just to make sure that everything looks the same way and to show you how the date picker works. So here is the application, and as you can see, the date picker is a very good interface in here, but it has also a time picker, and we don't really need it. In fact, it is not quite useful right now, because what happens if I want to just jump to a year that is quite far? I will need to scroll and scroll and keep scrolling, and I'm barely starting on 2016. So what I can do is come back and stop the application from running, select the picker, the date picker, and on the attributes inspector there's actually a mode that you can change. So as you can see, the default mode is date and time, but you can always change it to date, like that. Great, so let's now run this one more time and see how it is looking now. And this is way better, so I can just jump to a year way in the future and select the day and select the month. But of course right now nothing is happening when I click calculate or anything. And of course I need to bring that label back to 0 days, because at the beginning it just says some random number. So before connecting anything in the next lecture and coding the functionality, let me just change this back to 0 days. So it's like this at the beginning of the application, right when the user launches it. And that's it. I believe the user interface is ready, and in the next lecture we're going to connect it to the view controller and we are going to code the functionality.